Hi, Sharon. How are you?
Hi, Sharon.
Hi, how are you guys?
Great. We're so glad you can join us today. We just want to chat a little bit about your solo play and on how it got started, how you write it, where you are, the whole process.
Would you talk about our history, all of us together? Because, and not way back, but we're talking about with the first solo festival.
Because you were a part of the SaraSolo several years back.
Right, about 5 years ago,
Mm.
I put this together as a one-woman show, playing multiple characters. Um, and I was so excited to do it. Thank you. And since then, I got a lot of encouragement from both of you and from a few other professionals in the area who'd come to see it, and they encouraged me to keep working on it, to keep improving it, to sharpen the storyline, the lyrics, and it sat on a shelf. COVID happened, and then you know what kind of incentive was there at that point? But then we did a performance on Zoom for Metropolitan Zoom, and the man in charge there was very encouraging of this, and so was Carlo Thomas, who was working with us then. And so we started the rewrite, and it took longer than we wanted. It took us a year to get to this point, but it's been a journey to sharpen it. We've cut lots of songs, we've added songs, we performed it for you, workshopped it for you, workshopped it for a few other professionals, workshopped it in front of Carlo, and got a chance to get excellent feedback and make sure it was focused the way it was focused, that the music was doing what it needed to do, where that the song choices were in the right places, and the storytelling, all those kinds of things you got to worry about.
And the original title in the festival was just Golda. Is that
I
correct?
think it was Golden Roads,
Oh,
Golden
it
because we
was.
have
Road.
a
It was
Right.
Golden
song.
Girls. Yep.
Yeah,
Oh,
because
Golden
we
Road.
have a song called Golden Roads,
Yeah.
and we thought of spelling like GALDAN, Golden Roads,
Yeah.
because there is actually a roadway that she constructed when she was Minister of Labor that had terraces of greenery that was made beautiful, that was nicknamed Golda Vegan in Hebrew, which is Golden Roads. So that's kind of where we got it, but since been dropped. It
Yes.
doesn't connect unless you know that.
Right.
And you retitled it.
Rhapsody for Golda.
And
Exactly.
that's a title that, the beauty was seeing your face when you finally decided that title. Because you were trying it out on people. But the biggest thing is, did it work well for you? And I think that was the thing, because it reminds you that that's what this is. This is for her. This is to make her known in the ways that people might not have known her personally. I relish our history with the piece because I remember that before the first festival that you were in, sitting in your living room and getting our own concert, and I think about the difference between then and now,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
with the second kind of similar performance,
And
which
the
is done
growth,
several months ago, I
the
think.
growth, and the growth of you
That's what I'm
in
talking about.
realizing the
Yeah,
piece. Yeah.
that's what's
Yeah,
beautiful.
thanks. Yeah. And Blake, you'll be directing.
Yes, and you
Right.
invited me to direct it. Unfortunately, we lost Carlo in the meantime,
Uh,
and I
Stepped up to the plate.
but I never thought I would be doing this. I never,
I never thought I'd be doing it. I never wrote it for me. I never wrote it for me. I always thought someone else would be playing it. And I did it mostly to utilize so many of David's songs that had a Eastern European, Hebrew, Israeli flavor. I thought I gotta get these off the shelf and onto the stage. But I never expected to play Golda. And here I am.
we have,
Well, and this is also a piece that you can hand off to. It's well written. You would love that you can just hand it off to other people to
so
do.
beautiful. Um,
I would have no problem doing that. It would be wonderful to see other interpretations
Yeah,
of
it's
it.
fun to watch
Yeah.
other actors and say your words. Yeah.
Would you
Absolutely.
Yeah,
talk?
yeah.
Would you talk to the evolution of the book? We'll call it the book. It is the script of the musical because this is a musical. It's a solo musical, one woman musical or one man. I one
Yeah,
woman.
who knows?
It's a they. It's a
That's
they.
a they.
It's a
Um,
they.
and tell us about what it is to fine tune it and to find all the ways. I because I can speak on this, but I would love to hear from you about your experience of that.
Well, generally, when I write books, I put everything down and then I start cutting. And I do look at the architecture of where a song comes so that there's a great variety and style of songs, like a ballad doesn't follow a ballad, that there's rhythmic numbers, there's comedy numbers, there's celebratory numbers, character numbers. So I make sure that all of those are kind of included. But in writing the dialogue, it's a challenge, it's a struggle, because then I look at everything I have down and go, oh, that can be acted. This is too many words in this sentence. I can shorten it from 10 to 5. Um, I need to make sure there's comedy in there. There's reversals. Um, but when you write a musical, the book has to be as lean as possible. So last summer, when you guys came over and listened to it, you suggested that we add some recitative to musicalize some of the dialogue. So we did that. We musicalized some of the dialogue. We didn't musicalize all of it because that didn't all work, but it did make the transitions going in and out of the songs better. And then it's so hard to find a way to make exposition, because this piece goes from the time she's, well, essentially 5 years old till she's in her 70s.
Mhm.
How
Mhm.
to span that in an entertaining fashion, still get the exposition across, and then, but not bore the audience. Can't bore the audience ever. So that was the hardest thing.
Yeah, it's been wonderful watching you in the process, and also having a tiny hand in that too, um, because I think what we're finding more and more is when it's actable, when it's emotional, when it gives that kind of effect, then that we rely on much more than we do the facts of the exposition. Um, and it's been a delight. You've done a wonderful thing because, and I call this narrative when it's a solo play, and I guess it can translate the same way. But you have a narrator in Zion,
Yeah.
and you're physicalizing Zion, and you're giving Zion a character.
Yeah, and for people who are listening to this, who and what is Zion? You may have to describe that.
And I begin as a storyteller. So I'm going to relate Golda's story. And within that, we have the character who's a spirit guide, kind of a land spirit. He's anchored to that area in the Middle East that is known as Zion or Palestine, or now it's Israel. It's not necessarily, but he calls himself borderless. So he calls himself an idea, a promise, a vision, and he's borderless. So that area, borders are, they've been flexible for millennium. So who knows what it's going to be, but he wants people there and he wants Golda there. So he attracts her over, and he's larger than life. He has a very resonant sound, whereas Golda's kind of a little more nasal, but uh, and he's big. He's like Shakespearean. He's big and he's bigger than life, and he's funny and he's grand, and he's got he's he's just got such heart. So I love this character.
He has heart. He has sense of humor, and
Yeah.
I just saw Tevye in a second, and only because Tevye is iconic and um, represents many people.
Every
Yeah,
man.
there's a kind of piece of that, and I know that What's cool is as you are doing this more and more and picking up your own revisions and you're finding what's actable, what isn't. We've said that a couple times already, and um, and then making any of the characters, giving the characters a characterization.
Because there's so much drama and I won't say heartache, but struggle in this piece. I wanted to find every single way I could to bring comedy into it.
Yeah.
So Zion is often the comic relief, and he's out there a lot. And he falls in love with her, and he has attitude, and he's a lot of fun. But Golda has her comic moments. But she's a little more the straight man, like in the comic duo. Yeah. She plays the straight, but she's so heartfelt. Everything is deeply felt. And as an actress, I find I can't act her. I have to believe everything she believes because it's so in her bones that if I don't put it in my bones, it's not gonna read authentic.
Exactly.
But that's
so I hope you'll let me know if I do that.
Well, I do, but the author also lets you know. I mean, and this is what's beautiful about what you get to discover as the actor. And I'm referring to the author as somebody outside because you do have those two hats. But
Yeah.
But the actor needs to, for those who don't understand this, needs to now take over. I love what we discovered, and I say this together about what is that song?
Fight the fight.
Fight the fight.
Fight the fight.
Yeah.
Fight the fight.
Fight
See,
the
it used to be called Save a Life,
I know
and I changed the hook because it wasn't working.
It isn't, and the beauty of this is it almost defies the title because we think of fight the fight as being the challenge, and your interpretation now is the delight in fighting, the delight in overcoming, the delight in the challenge, and then how you come from the challenge, and allowing others to understand that it doesn't have to be a struggle. It can be.
It's a much more mature choice too.
And it's delightful. It becomes one of the. It's not a comic song, but it becomes one of the lighter songs.
Oh, good.
Let me talk as director for a second, because
Sure.
We've asked a lot of directors the challenge of directing a solo piece.
Yes, Blake. What's the challenge of directing a solo piece?
There are a lot of challenges, and but one major one is you and I had a meeting just to see if we were on the same page, if this really could work as a team, because David had to be involved too.
Yeah.
And I think
David is...
I'm sorry, David Ohrenstein, who is the incredible composer of this piece.
And he gets to accompany you on top of it.
Yes, and he's also...
And wait a minute, let me add, the piano becomes a character in itself.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely. It has its own voice.
This is
throughout
really
the piece.
important. Yeah, I mean, the piano's there.
It has to play the different motifs, which has its own personality.
There's a characterization throughout. There is underscoring throughout. There are little bell tones.
And also sounds at times that you're having a conversation with the tune.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So it what I love about that is I don't feel like everything's on me as the solo performer. I'm playing off of the piano and some of the things that the piano brings.
And it's a lot of fun for us watching. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Oh, it's great. But there has to be, this is a very vulnerable thing. And there has to be an agreement with the performer and the director, and the writer comes into that too. But
which hat do you want?
Yeah, exactly. Which hat do you want?
But this has to be a loving space, and that sounds a little. But it has to be
nurturing,
nurturing and allowing. Exactly,
and
it's
safe.
got to be nurturing.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that's the nature of it. It's a vulnerable thing, even though you're not. This is not autobiographical. It is still you alone.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable. Your vulnerable self. So and it's taking care. Now, I think that that's what all good directors do anyway, because they need to take care of the
Well, and
piece as it
especially in
is.
solo work, because you are, especially if you're the writer and the performer. Sometimes you're just performing other people's work. That playwright has to and is the eye of the audience, but they have to support you. And if you don't have that good relationship, it just doesn't work. You
That's
have to
right.
feel that you're being held, safely to get through something.
Right.
Yes, yes. So that's why I'm so grateful because you understand all that. It's not every director does. It's no.
Not every director does.
We've all been there.
Right, right.
Exactly.
Um, One of the other things that we will be determining, because we're in rehearsal, and we're going to be finding ways that you can transform, because you do sometimes in one song you sing a duet between Morris and Golda, and
I do.
it's really delightful. Uh, and
I'm
How you
it's
lucky.
how you do the harmonies just blow my
well, that's
mind.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah, good question. No harmony.
But the additional thing is you're singing in two different ranges too.
Yeah.
In that, it's still the same key, but it's different ranges. And one of the other delights about this is we are all aware. You, David, and I were aware of the fact that you needed a song. You need a song, and
Yes.
we'll very blatantly call it the 11 o'clock number, but this is a different kind of musical. But it needs some powerful song at a certain point.
The outburst.
The outburst, and
Yeah.
tell us what happened with that.
It was part of what needed to be cut. So when I got to the part where we had talked about it, where Israel becomes a state, the show then became about Israel and not about Golda. So I wanted to cut the song that was there and move to another moment when right after Israel is established as a state, she is sent out of the country to become minister of Moscow. She hates that. She hates that she's being sent away. The rabbis, now that it's officially a state, don't want women in government. They think they're too emotional. And I say, well, what are they, robots? So yeah. So I wanted a number that had that outburst because she's just done so much to help establish this new state. And I was listening to an introduction to her do a speech at a temple in Canada, and they introduced her as a woman of valor. So I thought, oh, that sounds like a good hook. And then I did a little research, and then I started looking in David's trunk for a song, and I found one that had the right rhythm. A woman of valor is worth more than rubies. And so I went on and on into that song, and oh man, it became this whoa, knock you on the floor dead song. And it's not because I'm singing, it's because he wrote that kind of piece. And it just I don't know, you've heard it. I shouldn't, that's my opinion when I'm singing it. It's like, it's so filled with passion and emotion and the ups and downs and the struggles. It's a really cool song. I don't know. What do you
I'll
think?
tell you, Sharon, because it's not bragging at all. And you called me and said, we got it, we found it. Yeah, it's here now. We know what it is.
Yeah, it was just 2 weeks ago, and it
Yeah.
took me 3 days to write it. And I'm still sort of, I fiddled with the lyrics for another week, just a couple places here and there. So go ahead, you say what your
And,
reactions were.
but your reaction was just that. It was, this is so remarkable, because I heard the actress telling me. I didn't hear the person who wrote the song. I heard the actress saying, I now have my moment. I have the moment that's needed emotionally at that time.
Yeah.
And and that's okay, because that's when you can look at a song and say, who wrote that?
Yeah.
Oh, and that's essentially that's what it was. It's like, oh God, look what I get to do in this song. It's so much fun to sing,
And
and it goes through my head every night. Oh my God.
it's a beautiful song. And what happens now is that song now in its place brings up everything else around it, and it's also going to speak to everything else that you've written in the past.
Exactly.
From
Yeah.
here, and you are going to reevaluate several other things. I think the additional little thing that we all know is that because you were going through David's files on
the computer, yeah.
and the name of the song was.
It was Opus 97.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't listen to 97 pieces to get there, but I did listen to about 20.
And the additional line is From a Dream.
Yes.
Because he dreamt that song.
He did dream this song.
Wrote it.
Yep.
That's
way
so
back.
cool.
A melody from a dream.
Yeah.
Melody from a Dream.
Yeah.
And I just feel like those things are all, and you found it.
It's Kismet.
He has hundreds of songs
Yes.
that you sort of got to, and I think it was partly Opus 97, but it was that dream word, I think, that made you open it up and re-listen to it.
Right.
And
it's got so much counterpoint in it.
Yeah.
It's so filled with passion that it took a while for me to figure out where the melody was going to be.
And as you said,
and then how to accompany it. Yeah.
Because the vocal line is a little different than the accompaniment, which is complex and wonderful.
It plays against it so lovely.
Yeah, I remember when you were talking about. Wait a minute, I'm going to get rid of that vocal line as I was listening to it for the first time, because I wanted to be able to really to hear the accompaniment as well, and So
what you let me let everybody know what you mean when you say that.
Yeah.
When you're in finale, there's something called studio view, and you can mute certain staffs. So I muted the vocal line, so we only heard the piano while I was singing it.
Yeah, that was so
That's
great.
I can't wait to get it on its feet and really be moving with it, and to physicalize each of the characters and find their voices and their personalities. That's what I love about doing a one-person show, because if you're like you, if both of you, if you're an actor with range, if you just play one person, it's kind of limiting. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but when I was singing mostly soprano, the soprano was one type of character, stock character on the stage. And it's like, oh, I got low notes. Hey, I got low notes, and you don't get to use them, and you don't get to explore other aspects of what you can do. So that's kind of what makes this fun.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing this with us, and
Thank
we'll see you on the stage.
I can't wait.
This is a world premiere.
It's a world premiere.
It really is a world premiere. Rhapsody for Golda.
Yeah.
Rhapsody for Golda.
Again. Two steps, then 3 steps. A path appears before your eyes. You think you see where it's going, but you're in for a big surprise. This man makes plans and God just laughs at them. On whatever road you go, it's all a big adventure ride that's sure to